Genova Burns has been servicing its clients for more than 35 years. John Quincy Adams said that whoever tells the best story wins. Let me tell you our story. My name is Gene Paolino. I'm a senior partner at Genova Burns. I do real estate development, and this is Jersey City. I'm actually standing in perhaps the center of the largest development on the Northeast that sparked basically a renaissance of a city that was industrialized and suffered from a good deal of financial pressures. Behind me you'll see a series of buildings. 40 years ago those buildings did not exist. We call this the Gold Coast for obvious reasons. But right here was the ignition for the renaissance of Jersey City. It changed literally everything this city was doing. It brought economy, it brought jobs, it brought thousands of residents, and it all started a couple of miles to my south at Liberty State Park, probably when a former Hollywood star announced his candidacy, and governor of the state of California, announced his candidacy for the presidency. Mr. Reagan was announcing his candidacy in a Democratic stronghold. Mr. Reagan remembered that at a later time, I think, and paid great attention to the development, the resurgence of Jersey City. Where I'm standing is basically in the center of a residential development, and it was constructed by a fellow with a remarkable reputation. His name was Sam Lefrak. The Lefrak organization had built a number of buildings, residences on Long Island, and had now focused his attention on Jersey City's waterfront. The waterfront at that time, I must tell you, was crisscrossed by railroads that had long left the city. It was a terrible place to be, undeveloped, and it was difficult to see how this could come back and be developed. So Mr. Lefrak focused on this area and began with thinking of a residential development. Certainly, he had done that in Long Island, but buying up buildings. There's a building to my left which was a warehouse. That warehouse he owned, began developing it, and remarkably enough, at the same time, maybe a few years later, when the Japanese began buying up properties in and around the New York metropolitan area, a Japanese chairman of the board for a Recruit got a look at this building and decided to buy it from Mr. Lefrak. And Mr. Lefrak refused to sell it. He did agree to lease the entire building to the Recruit company, and the Recruit company took the lease and developed it as an office building. Later it became a disaster recovery center for data for many of the large banks and other institutions that were reliant upon data, and they became, as I said, disaster recovery centers. This building was developed. They began developing residential buildings on the waterfront. The piers were either taken away or they were cleaned up, supported, structurally changed, and buildings popped up by different developers who saw the same opportunities or began to get the same glimmer that Sam Lefrak did. And you'll see along this waterfront, Goldman Sachs built the largest building in the state of New Jersey, developed it at a place called Paulus Hook, which is another inlet along the Hudson River and at the mouth of the Hudson Bay. and development took place around it. There was a point in time when whether or not this was going to be an office center or a residential center was kind of in flux. Eventually, there was mostly residential going on, even hotels. There's a hotel to my right, the Westin. But there were still remnants of the office buildings. There's an office building before me, the same building, the Recruit building that I pointed out before is an office building. And to my west, with the assistance of the Glimpser Company, a Newport Mall, also I think it's known as Newport Center, was developed. Can you imagine this? On the waterfront that was a wasteland, now is going up a shopping mall, surrounded by residences, surrounded by huge office buildings, hotels. It became a different place over the course of the next 40, 50 years. So it's an enormous undertaking and project, and it took, to his credit, it took a visionary to see that. A redevelopment plan. Jersey City is famous for having probably over 100 redevelopment plans. Redevelopment plans are meant to redevelop blighted areas. You have to satisfy the criteria for it being blighted, and if you do, then the city, through an agency, has the right to go in and condemn properties, transfer properties to developers, enter into redevelopment agreements, which is exactly what was done here. Redevelopment took place. Tax abatements were granted, pilots, what they called pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. That was all done. All of these tools were used by the mayor and the council at the time to encourage development, which in fact happened. That's only the start. This development took place. There were other parts of the city that were also developed.